What's the scariest fact you know in your profession that no one else outside of it knows? I used to work in banking, and it was eye-opening to see how many people were victims of fraud, how little recourse there is to get the money back, and how little the police can do for you too. My GF recently got a job at a credit union, and I hear stories every day now of someone trying to scrounge up money to put a bankrupt account back in good standing. What's the saying? If I'm $100 in debt, it's my problem, but if I'm $100,000 in debt, it's the bank's problem, or something like that. You are off by a scale of 1,000, but close. London police got the pickpocket who swiped my credit card on camera. He used the card in several locations across the city, but unless he also used it in the same borough as he stole it, the police couldn't get the footage. Also, how many people have CC debt? I know the more money, more problems. But it's shocking how true it is. As long as the bills got paid in a timely manner, most couples don't butt into their partner's finances. When they want to co-sign for a mortgage, I run both credits, and when one is a surprise, I call the lawyer extension to get them in, because I sense a divorce is imminent. Supply coordinator for a hospital here. Our supplies are ridiculously cheap. That you were charged $1,000 for? We paid 79 cents for it. We get diapers for about $1 per case. I worked application support for a hospital EMR for a bit, and was able to view the charge master. The software we used showed the hospital's cost, patient's cost, and the markup percentage. I never saw anything with a lower markup percentage than 1,000%. What's the actual justification for this? Are there markups on products and such to help cover the costs of services elsewhere, or is it just a gigantic for-profit fuck you? As I understand it, it's the initial price offer of the hospital, and you, or the insurance company, has to negotiate it downward, and if you don't, then they make a lot of money. This is why if you ask them for a cash price, they'll usually negotiate themselves down on your behalf. I had to go to the hospital for a broken bone 4 summers in a row as a kid. It went the same way every time. Mom asks for cash price, mom starts a payment plan, mom doesn't make payments, it goes to collections, we don't answer the phone. Eventually it just falls off your credit, and it's like it never happened. Which is why it's the middle-class schmucks that get screwed over with medical expenses. They have insurance that's going to end up costing them more in an emergency. Because they won't negotiate the hospital down as well as the hospital will negotiate themselves down for you. As a librarian, you'd be horrified how many books we get returned and have to throw out because they're absolutely covered in bed bugs. We put a block on accounts and notify patrons. But I'm specifically told not to mention this problem to the public whatsoever by management. Shit. I am always paranoid about bed bugs on the chairs/furniture in public spaces. This does not help. Oh cool, I hadn't thought about that. Thanks for the new fear, ya jerk. LMAO same, although I will say for anyone worried, don't be. If bed bugs were going around the library, your librarians would be the first to know. BC if anyone, we handle the books and have our personal affects around them the most. On the flip side, I will add, like anywhere, some managers and their policies are idiotic. Our protocol for roaches in CDs or bedbugs in books was to wrap them up and put them in the freezer until the circulation leader came in. On top of employees' food. As a former full-time bug guy, it's the eggs you have to worry about. While visible to the naked eye, just barely, they can go easy missed and be present with no bugs in sight. I was never really a library person till I started taking my toddler, and this genuinely has me concerned, and I would have never thought about it as a vector for infestation. I've had customers in the past have no idea how they got them. Didn't travel, didn't have anyone stay with them, didn't go to movie theaters. No used items or anything. But this I never thought to ask. Wild. The entirety of the internet is held together by a very outdated and very vulnerable routing protocol. Also, everyday people imagine the internet as shiny, highly secured, modern high-tech data centers, as shown in movie productions and stock photos. Reality is, 99% of the internet is actually a bunch of crappy 19 racks full of bare metal shit, outdated legacy code, a spaghetti parade of network cables, cooling fans, and underpaid admins. Edit. Look mom, I'm famous. You just described server room and lab at work perfectly. Now I work in a server room next to a bunch of crappy 19-inch racks full of bare metal shit, outdated legacy code, a spaghetti parade of network cables, cooling fans, and underpaid me. Climbing into an unventilated manhole can kill you in seconds, and you wouldn't even know anything was seriously wrong. You think that's air you're breathing now? Manholes can fill with gases that are heavier than breathable air. You think are breathing normally, but instead you fall unconscious and suffocate from lack of oxygen. Good to know in case I decide to escape to the sewers. The true hard part is getting the mutants to accept you. I hear that bringing pizza helps, at least with the turtle mutants. Yeah, you know that feeling that you get that you really need to breathe if you hold your breath for a while. That's not due to your body feeling the need for oxygen. It's your body feeling that it's got too much carbon dioxide in the lungs. If you're breathing gas mixture that doesn't contain CO2, then you won't feel like you're running out of breath. You'll just pass out and die. You know how you worry about getting your frozen and refrigerated groceries home and put away before they spoil? Overnight stalkers don't. Working in a kitchen, there's a reason many restaurants refuse deliveries between 12 to 1. If everyone is working, no one is available to accept the order and put the perishables away. Sometimes frozen will not be so frozen by the time it gets into the freezer or walk-in. It's a big problem, and you can notice it for some frozen goods, especially raw frozen doughs. Ice cream that is completely crystallized too. That happens when it has been melted and refrozen. I was a frozen food stalker at a grocery store as a teenager. The amount of time some of the frozen shit sat thawing on U-boats was astonishing. My wife freaks out if frozen stuff goes a half hour before it gets into our home freezer. If she only knew the truth. Probably how painful and long dying naturally can take. I work in memory care and have cared for so many people dying. It's not a nice conversation with a loved one and then peacefully drifting off to sleep like in the movies. Sometimes it can take days, up to 2 weeks once they transition before they take their last breath. Sometimes they scream and writhe for days while unconscious until they pass. Morphine should be a human right. Assisted suicide should be a human right. LPN in memory care. Morphine and atropine. I was so grateful that the nurses asked if we would like them to increase the morphine for my parents to make them more comfortable. They explained, unnecessarily, that it might hasten their deaths. My sister and I told them to load them up. We knew it was going to kill them. But we also knew my mother wasn't coming back from Alzheimer's and pneumonia, or that my father who had fallen and was brain dead was going to start talking again. Let them go peacefully and preferably quickly. Morphine is the best gift you can give someone. Am a nurse. I'd say it's probably the fact that people know when they're going to die. They will straight up tell you, today is my last day, thank you for being kind, and you reassure them because their vitals are good, they are taking to treatment well, nothing happening that would indicate a drastic decline. Then, inevitably, you will hear a flatline on the machine and run in, and sure enough that patient has passed away. If it hadn't happened so many times, I would chalk it up to a few people who just didn't have the will to live anymore, but I've seen it enough, I know that's not it. Really creepy when you think about it too hard. And why Mom knew the week she was dying. Kept saying, I'm just tired of it, you know. She died 3 days later and told me to forgive her an hour before she went unconscious. This was 3 months ago and it's still on my mind. It's very weird how people recognize the end. Big lingering digital hug to you. I worked in in-home senior care for hospice patients for several years. I had to quit because of the psychological toll. I wasn't even a nurse, just a caregiver for dying rich people essentially. But the horrific things I saw other caregivers and some nurses do really scarred me. Theft, neglect, abuse. My last client before I quit permanently was an elderly couple. They were both in wheelchairs. They were being cared for by a live-in son who hired us and spent their money. The elderly man eventually died. The woman made it explicitly clear for a year after she was a DNR. She had a stroke and lost her voice. The son hires 3 caregivers for 3 shifts, then pared it down to 2. Myself in the morning/afternoon and a young sexpot with Daisy Dukes and a complete annoyed indifference to anything outside her phone. I came in one morning and found that she had ignored our client and deliberately overloaded her with laxatives the night before, in an attempt to get her to have a bowel movement in the morning so she didn't have to deal with it during her afternoon/evening shift. On a very rare recent occasion, the client had one at night, and Daisy Duke decided she never wanted to do it again. The bed was a folding recliner. The look of distress the moment I walked in. It was liquid. It was everywhere. It was pooled up into her vagina. It took a couple of hours of showering and soothing assurance to get her right again. I finally was able to get Daisy Duke fired. But wait, there's more. Once she lost the ability to speak, the son completely ignored the DNR and called 911 over and over, dragging her out of bed to take her to the emergency room over and over, and eventually somehow got her installed into a hospice. She repeatedly kept trying to communicate, "I don't want this, let me die." But if she did, the free house and money would go away for the son. I couldn't take it anymore. I quit and got into other work. I'm terrified that in the years I did it, I ran into so few people like me that actually legitimately cared and tried. Most just didn't give a shit, or were criminal in some way. I don't have kids or family beyond my husband. I have no idea who's going to be hovering over me when I'm in my final bed. I think about that a lot. You comforted a woman in her final days, and were the light in a dark world. Find comfort in that. I actually find this really comforting, and I'm glad I read this comment. My grandma, who I was extremely close to my entire life, 2 weeks after she died, I realized it was the longest I had ever gone without speaking to her. I'm 28, died this summer. She wasn't terminally ill, but she was in her 90s, extremely frail, significantly disabled at that point, and she'd been slowly dying for months, if not years. I had recently gotten home after visiting my home state primarily to see her, and we had spoken multiple times about how I'd next visit late in the summer. I live over 1,000 miles away. The last day she called me, we spoke for about 15 minutes, and as we were hanging up, she told me, "I'm so sick of it. Every day it's the same people and the same place," in her care facility. She said it in a bitter tone but followed it with a genuine, slightly sad chuckle. She never mentioned when I'd come to visit next. She died in her easy chair with the sun on her face a few hours later. Because of how our last conversation went, I'd always been suspicious that she knew, but I had nothing I could point to confirm that. We were all close to her, but I was the closest, and we'd been talking candidly about her death for years. We would even openly joke about her dying, and we were so comfortable with it that I had told her on several occasions, "I'll be happy for you when you die." We also never danced around the word die with euphemisms. It was a completely safe topic. It gives me comfort that she probably knew and that she felt that she had said all of her goodbyes. She died at the apotheosis of our relationship, and I have no regrets or things left unsaid either. Thanks for your comment. What's the scariest fact you know about your profession that no one outside of it knows? Write in the comments. Also, do you want a second part? Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Bye.